Bruce Feldman here, everybody, from Fox Sports and The Athletic. We've been talking, that's worthy of a round of applause.
Oh, thank you for that.
We have been talking all day about, because it's the 50th anniversary of the Rumble in the Jungle. Okay. What sporting event, if you could wave a wand and go to, if in any time, which college football game, if you could wave a wand and go to that you didn't go to or you would want to go to, which one
college football game? That's a good question. I would have thought about, this is not what you asked, but this is like, sure. I mean, you and I are pretty much the exact same era. I was a little kid when Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs in the World Series against the Dodgers. I think, I don't know, we were like first, second grade, somewhere around there. I do remember getting to stay up to watch, even though we had school the next day. And I think that would have been awesome to have been at that game.
Yeah, 1977, I was 8.
Yeah, so I would have been roughly the same.
Yeah. But any college football one?
College football game, I feel like I've been fortunate enough to be at most of the ones I would have liked to have been at. In retrospect, I'm trying to think of something like historically that would have...
Band on the field, Cal Stanford?
That would have been crazy. It's just that game around it wouldn't have been like, it would have been whatever. Maybe the Doug Flutie,
good one.
The game against Miami Thanksgiving weekend for BC. The game that has come up, and it's interesting because like somebody interviewed me for this week because you have Mahomes Mayfield again. Like I was a sideline reporter when that game was just insane. Now it wasn't like 2 top 10 teams. Oklahoma was pretty good and Texas Tech wasn't. But in retrospect, it was such a wild night to be there for that. But maybe the Flutie game, just because it is such a game of legend as it was, and it was a wild game back and forth. I would say probably there. I'm sure there's like, some game that I have no idea what it would have been like to be at the tie game, the Michigan State Notre Dame game. Of the Duffy Doherty era of Bubba Smith in the 66, I think it was. But
never know, Bruce Feldman.
Yeah.
No, those are all good. Or one of the 10-year War, Bo versus Woody games, or anything Paul Bear Bryant.
Man, I feel like I saw the best. Like if you're a Michigan fan, the best Michigan game. Again, there's people who are much older than me who are Michigan fans. But when they went in there after they beat them the first time, and it was 2 years ago, and you're banged up. Lake Horams barely can go. They had a bunch of other guys injured. Donovan Edwards has those 2 really long runs, and be on the sideline and hear the Michigan players, Sainer Still, Michael Barrett, hear how they were talking about Ohio State players and the Ohio State toughness or lack thereof compared to them. Just to see the fan reaction in Columbus that day. Like, if you were a Michigan fan, to me, that would have been hard to top.
Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show from Fox Sports and The Athletic. Let's talk about the here and now for the Ohio State. Ohio State 4 at Penn State 3. Is that where you're going? You're going back to you're going to Happy Valley?
Going to Happy Valley. Excited about it. Both teams are not like, it's a top 5 matchup yet. Ohio State, we had them last week, and they really struggled against Nebraska, who, by the way, got beat by like 50 the week before at Indiana.
Yeah.
So, Ohio State is banged up on the O-line. They struggled to run the ball. I still think they're super talented, and they can win the national title. They're really good on defense. You got Penn State. I think, from what I heard, that Drew Aller is expected to play. They're optimistic, at least at this point of the week, that he will play. But they'll play the backup a lot, Bo Pribula, because he's a more dynamic runner in what they do. But neither coach, especially James Franklin, but neither coach has done well in big game top 5 matchups. I mean, the records are really bad. And if you're looking at it as a Penn State fan, if you're like, man, if we're ever going to beat this team, it's not like Ohio State's bad, but Ohio State did not look good last week at all.
Well, Will Howard, the quarterback, had an interesting soundbite. Let's play it and get your reaction to it. This is what he had to say about playing Penn State this week.
I'm stoked. I cannot wait. It's going to be a homecoming for me. I grew up a Penn State fan. I wanted to go there my whole life. They didn't think I was good enough. But I guess we'll see next week if I was.
Wow.
Ooh. What do you think?
Sign me up. This is good stuff, right? You got a Pennsylvania kid coming back home who, he's had a really good career, won a Big 12 title for K-State. he's played pretty well. I mean, talking to, like, we did a big story on The Athletic just, it went up today, about talking to coaches who played both. And he was good against Oregon. He was good against Iowa. And Iowa's a tough defense. They're super well coached. And so I think he has it in him. I do feel like they have to unlock the run game. The thing that would concern me if I was an Ohio State fan is Penn State has super twitchy defensive linemen. Abdul Carter, I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons, but he's of that ilk, of that kind of explosiveness. And Ohio State's offensive line, that is the weak spot right now. So fortunately, you have a big quarterback who is pretty mobile, and they do a lot of funky stuff, right? You'll see the tight end, you'll see 44 line up all over the place. I'm fascinated to see how this plays out, because I know Ohio State lost to a good Oregon team in a tough place to play. Coming out of that, they were still my pick to win the national title. They did, my knees buckled after watching them a little last week, though. We'll see what Ryan Day's team has this week on the road.
And the fascinating thing is, as we're watching these two teams play it out, right, and Oregon's in the big house, we chatted with Curt Cignetti yesterday. We got him on the program. And, honestly, want to make me feel like, I was just bust straight through a brick wall. And what Indiana's doing is real. And the next 4 weeks, they've got Michigan State, and then they go have Michigan go into their house. Then they go to Ohio State. And normally that's one of those Ohio State, we'll just stay healthy best we can because we got the Michigan game the next week. That could be for a Big Ten championship game appearance, right?
Absolutely. And don't underestimate Indiana. We had them against Nebraska, where they were just 2 steps ahead of the Cornhuskers. They just look, they execute, they're really well coached. They just are sharper. They just look like they're 1 step ahead of the teams they're playing, and Curt Cignetti brought a bunch of really good players from JMU with him. Like the kid who had two picks last week and won a pick six, Pons, he's not a tall corner, but he's a super athletic kid. Mm-hmm. He is a playmaker. They have speed on defense. I think that's the thing that surprises some coaches when they play Indiana. It's like, ooh, they're a little faster than we thought they were, and I think Cignetti has good coordinators. The other Mike Shanahan, who's done a really good job, and Bryant Haynes is the DC. He's put together a good staff, and I just feel like they are really dialed in.
They are. What other games are you looking forward to this weekend, Bruce?
I'm interested to see, as we come out of like how this is. You got Florida, Georgia. Florida had a nice, I give Billy Napier a lot of credit because he's on the hottest seat in the country, and he has battled, and they have not quit on him at all. Now they have 5 games left. One of them is against a bad Florida State team. The other 4 are against like top 15 caliber teams. Mm-hmm. He needs to upset one of them. Good luck if it's going to be Georgia, but because I think that's the toughest of the 4. But I want to see how competitive Florida can be with them. We had a huge game last weekend that proved to be kind of the wild one of the weekend, the most impactful, where I'm on a flight home from Columbus, and I'm watching LSU is up by like 10 or 2 touchdowns on A&M, and the Wi-Fi goes out for like 20 minutes. And then I'm watching a different game. I kind of gave up on the game, and then I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute, A&M's now up 11? How did this happen? And then you watch them, and A&M was just a more physical team. Mike Elko, big credit to him, the first-year head coach at A&M. He's done a fantastic job. They're playing 2 quarterbacks. The backup came in and looked great. I want to see how these teams kind of come out of that game, because right now I feel a lot of confidence in Georgia because I still think they're Georgia. We saw them get after Texas.
They sure did.
Still think Texas is a really talented team. But then who we believe in the SEC as one of the top 3 teams? Is it A&M with a really good defense and a really well-coached team and can really run the football? Is it LSU, who looked like they wilted a little bit last week, and they didn't run the football, and they put too much, I think it was too much pressure on Nussmeier, the quarterback. Are we feeling like Alabama can bounce back. They didn't look good against Tennessee. Tennessee might have the best defense of all of them.
How about Kentucky
Georgia.
against Tennessee, right? You got a Kentucky team that lost by 1 to Georgia, and was
but
the
hasn't
first
beat
to
anybody else other than Ole Miss.
Ole
in the
Miss,
conference,
right?
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So maybe that's a
Yeah,
they bring their giant slaying ability. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff up against the wall here. What else? I mean, Georgia, Florida. That's basically the one.
That is,
right?
a headliner game right now. And I think what will be interesting, like Notre Dame had a big win last week. We've talked a decent amount on this show about Navy and Army resurgence, especially Navy. Notre Dame just hammered them, right? And so, quietly, it was a very good week if you're a Notre Dame fan because two things happened. One, they beat a top 25 team convincingly. And two, their win in week 1 at A&M now looks way better because A&M, is at the top of the SEC essentially, and they're a top 10 team, and Notre Dame went in there and beat them. That's a really good win. It's funny how we look at the schedules and be like, oh, schedule's not going to look that good. Maybe this team. And then, a couple of weeks ago, it's like, oh, Army and Navy are ranked. Maybe that's going to be good because USC is not that good. Well, now the A&M win is going to carry a lot more weight.
So then who are the teams that we need to look at in November here to make a nice run at that 10, 11, 12 seed possibilities for the college football playoff?
Well, you're definitely looking at Boise. They had a nice win on the road at UNLV. Ashton Genty's a legit Heisman contender.
He sure is, isn't he?
He's fun. Even, they get after him. He breaks tackles. He gets hard yards. Last week was 130, and he had to, I'm not saying he didn't have to work for it before, but he was grinding it out. And I think he's showing you everything you need to see if you're an NFL scout. They're right in there. I think we need to see what else comes out of the AAC. Obviously, Army. I don't think just because Notre Dame beat their arch rival as convincingly, that doesn't mean Army doesn't have a chance. But they're there. I think you look at some of these other schools now. We're going to find out a lot more, hopefully, about the ACC. Clemson is bounced back from that bad loss to Georgia. Miami keeps winning. Pitt keeps winning. Sorry, Brockman. Obviously, Pitt.
Yeah, that one left a mark.
Devastating.
Yeah, it was pick 6 all over the place.
That was awesome.
And then you have teams like SMU that are hanging around a one-loss team. I mean, those are the teams that it's like, okay, I went into this thinking there will be 4 SEC teams at least. That's what I thought initially. There will be 4 Big Ten teams. I still think there will probably be 4 Big Ten teams. I think there'll be 4 SEC teams.
So 4 Big Ten teams. We're talking Oregon. Both teams playing each other.
Indiana.
And then Indiana.
Yeah, those would be the 4 I
Ohio
would
State,
guess.
Penn State, Indiana.
Then you're sitting there looking at, that takes 8. We're going to have one we'll assume it's Boise for now.
9.
Notre Dame,
10.
That's 10. So you get 1 from the Big 12, 1 from the AAC. Right now there's 2 undefeated teams in both leagues because you have Pitt and Miami. And on the other side of it, you have BYU and Iowa State. I don't know. I mean, there's going to be an interesting argument whether a potentially 12-1. If let's say both teams are undefeated, I don't think that'll happen in the Big 12. But if it does, you have a 12-1 second, runner-up. Is that team going to get left out for a 9-3 maybe, or a 10-2 SEC team that doesn't have? If it's BYU, if they're 12-1, they have not just a close win. They blew out K-State. K-State's ranked. They beat SMU, and SMU's a one-loss team. They beat SMU at SMU. So they're going to have a resume that's good, but I think what's going to happen is the powers that be that sit in that room before the ESPN show on Tuesday nights are going to say, it comes back to the eyeball test. And even if Texas loses to Texas A&M, and Texas has no wins over ranked teams, they lost by 15 to Georgia, and whatever would happen in College Station.
Texas gets left out?
I don't think that's going to happen.
How is that possible?
I don't buy it because I think it'll come back to the eyeball test.
Sure.
For the, but people.
It's not just the eyeball test in terms of what gets people to the television sets.
I wasn't saying that.
Now
You're saying that.
I'm saying that, and that's that's part of this equation for sure.
You're saying it's not all on the up and up.
I'm not saying that. Now,
TV
you're
show.
saying that. I'm saying that there is, when it comes down to it, a factor of who's going to watch and what, and whether that's, and that is a metric. Certainly when there's partners that are paying through the nose for this sort of thing. You know, I think that's...
What are you saying about my sport?
I'm not saying that about your sport. I'm saying it about our business. It's a business.
It is a business.
You
It is
know?
a business. Look, I think Texas, if you ask me point blank, is Texas one of the top 11 teams in the country?
They
I
are.
would say,
Absolutely they
yes, I would absolutely say that.
There's no question.
The question is going to be, you know, your alma mater did not do them any favors. Maybe they'll be 7-5.
Alma mater's not doing me any favors or any of my compadres right now.
But that was a dominant showing by the Longhorns. It's going to be a dominant showing against a team that's probably 7-5. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll go to A&M. They're certainly good enough to beat anybody, and
Right.
I would think they could. You know, that game is going to be must-see TV, especially the way things are kind of shaped.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.